Alex Kurtzman's tenure as the primary architect of modern Star Trek represents one of the most catastrophic failures in franchise management in entertainment history. As the showrunner, executive producer, and creative force behind multiple Star Trek series under Paramount, Kurtzman has systematically destroyed a franchise that survived for over 50 years through multiple incarnations, turning it from a beloved cultural institution into a toxic brand associated with poor quality, divisive politics, and creative bankruptcy. The Paramount downfall isn't just about one man, but Kurtzman's creative decisions, his approach to storytelling, and his fundamental misunderstanding of what makes Star Trek work are central to how the franchise collapsed under his stewardship. Understanding how Kurtzman killed Star Trek requires examining what he's produced, what went wrong with his approach, how his creative philosophy contradicts Star Trek's core values, and why Paramount trusted him with the franchise despite mounting evidence that he was destroying it. This is the complete story of how one man's vision, or lack thereof, brought down one of science fiction's greatest franchises. The Kurtzman background: a writer who never understood Star Trek. Alex Kurtzman came to Star Trek not as a fan or as someone who understood the franchise deeply, but as a Hollywood writer-producer with a track record of big-budget action films that prioritized spectacle over substance. His previous work included Transformers, 2007, Star Trek, 2009, Cowboys and Aliens, 2011, and The Amazing Spider-Man 2, 2014, films that were commercially successful in some cases, but critically panned for weak writing, incoherent plotting, and prioritizing visual effects over character development. Kurtzman's approach to storytelling has always been about surface-level excitement rather than depth. His scripts tend to feature convoluted plots that don't hold up under scrutiny, characters who serve plot functions rather than feeling like real people, and spectacle that substitutes for genuine dramatic tension. This approach can work for certain types of blockbuster entertainment, but it's fundamentally opposed to what Star Trek has always been about. Star Trek's strength has never been action or spectacle. It's been thoughtful science fiction that uses futuristic scenarios to explore contemporary issues, that prioritizes character development and moral dilemmas, and that presents an optimistic vision of humanity's future. Kurtzman's entire creative sensibility runs counter to these values, making him perhaps the worst possible choice to run Star Trek. But Paramount gave him the job anyway, signing him to a massive overall deal in 2018 that made him the creative head of all Star Trek television development. According to industry sources, this decision was based more on Kurtzman's connections and his involvement in the 2009 Star Trek film than on any demonstrated understanding of what makes Trek work. Paramount wanted someone who could produce multiple shows quickly to fuel their streaming service, and Kurtzman promised he could deliver. Star Trek: Discovery, where the destruction began. Star Trek: Discovery, which premiered in 2017, was the first new Star Trek series in over a decade, and the first under Kurtzman's creative oversight. He took over as showrunner in Season 2 after Brian Fuller departed. Discovery set the template for everything wrong with Kurtzman's Star Trek: dark, cynical tone, heavy-handed political messaging, serialized storytelling that prioritized mystery boxes over coherent plotting, and a fundamental misunderstanding of Starfleet and Federation values. Discovery's first season featured a Starfleet officer committing mutiny in the first episode, a war with the Klingons that turned Trek's complex adversaries into generic villains, and a mirror universe storyline that reveled in darkness and brutality. The show's protagonist, Michael Burnham, was written as extraordinary and special in ways that undermined ensemble dynamics, and the serialized plotting meant the show had to maintain artificial tension and mystery rather than telling complete stories each episode. But the deeper problem was that Discovery's Starfleet didn't feel like Starfleet. Officers were unprofessional, emotional, and insubordinate. Command structures were ignored. The optimism and professionalism that defined Starfleet in previous series were replaced with interpersonal drama and characters who seemed more interested in their feelings than in their duties. This wasn't a minor tonal shift. It was a fundamental betrayal of what Star Trek's utopian future was supposed to represent. Kurtzman's defense of Discovery's approach has consistently been that Star Trek needed to evolve for modern audiences, that the old episodic format wouldn't work today. and that darker storytelling is more relevant and mature. But this betrays a fundamental misunderstanding. Star Trek's optimism and episodic problem-solving weren't limitations to overcome, but core strengths that made it unique in science fiction. Star Trek Picard, destroying a beloved character's legacy. Star Trek Picard, 2020 to 2023, might be Kurtzman's greatest crime against the franchise. The series brought back Patrick Stewart as Jean-Luc Picard, one of Star Trek's most beloved characters, and systematically destroyed everything that made him special. Kurtzman's Picard is bitter, defeated, isolated, and living in a federation that has abandoned its values. The optimistic, thoughtful, diplomatic captain from the next generation was replaced with a broken old man in a cynical, dark future. The first season of Picard featured gratuitous violence, including graphic eye removal, characters swearing constantly, because Kurtzman apparently thinks that's mature and edgy, and a convoluted plot about synthetic life and Romulan conspiracies that made little sense. The second season involved time travel and made even less sense. The third season was praised by some fans for bringing back the Next Generation cast, but it was still built on the foundation of Kurtzman's damaged Federation, rather than honoring the optimistic future TNG portrayed. According to sources close to the production, Patrick Stewart himself contributed to Picard's problems by insisting on creative control and wanting to explore Picard as a broken character dealing with regret. But Kurtzman enabled and amplified these instincts rather than pushing back with a vision of Picard that honored the character's legacy. The result was a show that satisfied neither Stewart's artistic ambitions nor fans' desires to see Picard and the TNG crew in adventures worthy of their legacy. Picard's failure was particularly damaging because it showed that even bringing back beloved characters and actors couldn't save Kurtzman's Star Trek. The problem wasn't just new characters that audiences hadn't connected with, it was the entire creative approach that Kurtzman brought to the franchise. Starfleet Academy, the show so bad it triggered a rebellion. Starfleet Academy represents the nadir of Kurtzman's Star Trek and the project that finally broke the patience of even the franchise's most loyal defenders. The show was greenlit under Kurtzman's oversight and reflected all his worst instincts: heavy-handed political messaging, characters defined by identity categories rather than personality, writing that prioritized delivering social justice lectures over telling compelling stories, and a complete abandonment of anything resembling the Star Trek that fans loved. According to insiders, Kurtzman was heavily involved in Starfleet Academy's development and approved the creative direction that led to disaster. The show's writers' room was reportedly selected based on demographic diversity and political alignment, rather than on understanding of Star Trek or demonstrated writing ability. The result was a show that felt like it was made by people who actively disliked traditional Star Trek and wanted to replace it with something that served their political agenda. The backlash to Starfleet Academy was immediate and overwhelming. Fans condemned it as the worst Star Trek ever produced. Critics noted the terrible writing and one-dimensional characters. And most devastatingly, Star Trek legends like William Shatner and Patrick Stewart publicly destroyed the show and demanded its cancellation. Kurtzman's response to criticism of Starfleet Academy was reportedly defensive and dismissive. According to sources, he blamed toxic fandom, racism, and resistance to change, rather than acknowledging the fundamental creative failures. This response pattern, blaming audiences rather than examining whether the creative product is actually good, has characterized Kurtzman's entire tenure running Star Trek. The Kurtzman formula: why everything he touches fails. Looking across Discovery, Picard, Starfleet Academy, and the other shows developed under Kurtzman's oversight, a consistent pattern emerges of creative choices that undermine Star Trek. First, Kurtzman's Star Trek is dark and cynical rather than optimistic. The Federation is presented as flawed, compromised, and sometimes corrupt, rather than as an aspirational vision of humanity's future. Starfleet officers are emotional and unprofessional, rather than competent and composed. Problems are solved through violence and manipulation, rather than through reason and cooperation. Second, Kurtzman prioritizes serialized mystery box storytelling over episodic problem-solving. His shows have season-long arcs with artificial mysteries and delayed revelations, rather than complete stories each episode. This approach worked for shows like Lost, which Kurtzman didn't work on but clearly influenced his thinking. But it's fundamentally opposed to Star Trek's traditional format of encountering a new situation each week and solving it through the crew's skills and the Federation's values. Third, Kurtzman's characters are defined by trauma, identity, and emotion, rather than by competence and professionalism. His protagonists are special and extraordinary in ways that undermine ensemble dynamics. Supporting characters exist to serve the protagonist's journey rather than having their own arcs and value. Fourth, Kurtzman's shows prioritize contemporary political messaging over universal themes and allegorical storytelling. Where classic Star Trek used science fiction scenarios to make audiences think about real-world issues indirectly, Kurtzman's Trek directly lectures about current politics using modern language and frameworks. This makes the shows feel dated and preachy rather than timeless and thought-provoking. Fifth, Kurtzman doesn't understand or respect Star Trek's history and continuity. His shows regularly contradict established canon, rewrite character histories, and make creative choices that betray what previous series established. This demonstrates either ignorance of the franchise or active disdain for what came before. The business failure. How Kurtzman destroyed Star Trek's value. Kurtzman's creative failures have translated into business disasters for Paramount. Despite producing multiple Star Trek series simultaneously, none have achieved the cultural impact or sustained audience that The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, or Voyager enjoyed. The shows are expensive to produce but don't drive subscriptions to Paramount Plus at the levels the studio needs. According to industry analysts, Star Trek under Kurtzman has become a money-losing proposition for Paramount. The studio is spending hundreds of millions on production but not seeing returns in subscriber growth or retention. The brand value of Star Trek has declined precipitously, with the name now associated with controversy and division rather than with quality science fiction. The cancellation of Starfleet Academy, the ending of Discovery and Picard, and the lack of announced new projects suggest Paramount is scaling back its Star Trek ambitions after the Kurtzman era proved disastrous. The franchise that was supposed to be a flagship for Paramount Plus has instead become a cautionary tale about the dangers of putting the wrong person in charge of valuable intellectual property. Why Paramount let Kurtzman destroy Star Trek? The question that haunts this story is why Paramount continued trusting Kurtzman with Star Trek despite mounting evidence that he was destroying it. The answer involves Hollywood's dysfunction, corporate politics, and the challenge of admitting mistakes. First, Kurtzman had a big overall deal with Paramount that gave him significant power and made it politically complicated to remove him. Admitting that deal was a mistake would have required executives to acknowledge their own bad judgment. Second, Paramount was desperate for content to fuel Paramount Plus and believed that having multiple Star Trek shows, regardless of quality, was better than having none. Quantity was prioritized over quality because streaming success is measured partly by volume of content. Third, the executives making decisions about Star Trek largely don't understand the franchise or why it matters. They see it as intellectual property to exploit rather than as a legacy to protect, and they trusted Kurtzman's Hollywood credentials over the concerns of people who actually understand Trek. Fourth, there's an ideological alignment between Kurtzman's approach and what Paramount executives think modern entertainment should be. The heavy-handed political messaging and identity-focused storytelling align with corporate values about representation and social responsibility, even when executed poorly. The Reckoning. Kurtzman's legacy of destruction. Alex Kurtzman will be remembered as the man who killed Star Trek. His tenure running the franchise has been catastrophic creatively, financially, and reputationally. He took a beloved franchise with 50 years of goodwill and turned it toxic. He drove away franchise legends who became so disgusted they publicly condemned modern Trek. He alienated core fans while failing to attract significant new audiences. He spent hundreds of millions of Paramount's money while destroying the brand value of one of their most important properties. The Paramount downfall isn't solely Kurtzman's fault. The executives who hired him, who gave him unchecked power, and who refused to acknowledge his failures share responsibility. But Kurtzman is the creative force whose vision, or lack thereof, directly produced the content that destroyed Star Trek. His fundamental misunderstanding of what makes Trek special, his prioritization of spectacle and politics over character and story, and his apparent disdain for the franchise's history and values have been consistent across every project he's overseen. Star Trek can potentially recover from the Kurtzman era, but it will require completely new creative leadership, a return to the franchise's core values, and a recognition that what made Star Trek great for 50 years wasn't something that needed fixing. The optimism, the episodic storytelling, the thoughtful exploration of ideas, the competent professionals solving problems through reason, these weren't limitations to overcome but strengths to build on. Alex Kurtzman never understood that, and his failure to understand it, combined with Paramount's failure to recognize his unsuitability for the job, is how Star Trek died on their watch. The franchise that survived for half a century couldn't survive a few years of Alex Kurtzman. That's his legacy. And it's the Paramount downfall explained.